The thing that married couples hate to admit is that at various points in their relationship with their spouse, they don't feel that feeling of love. They have fallen out of love with their spouse. And that's a weird place to be. And it's hard to admit that you may not love your spouse, or the better word we say, you're not in love with your spouse. So my goal is to show you how to get back in love with your spouse. But before I talk about how to get back in love with your spouse, a major portion of this depends on how you define love. And the best way to define love is to look at the Bible definitions of love. To begin this discussion, we have to realize that the New Testament is translated from the Greek into English. And in the Greek language, there's 5 different words to define love. So in the English language, we'll say something like, I love my car. I love my dog. I love my wife. I love my kids. I love my job. I love my business. So when you use love in all those different contexts, do you mean the exact same kind of love? Well, the Greek has 5 different definitions of love. And of the 5, we're going to focus in on 3 of those definitions of love that really refers greatly to the marital relationship. The first one is eros. Eros is the root word for erotic, but it doesn't necessarily describe just the sexual kind of love. It actually describes all emotional love and the feeling of love. This is when you say, I am in love with my spouse. When you say I'm in love with my spouse, you're defining the Greek word of eros types of love. This is that feeling of love. This is the love that desires to be near and next to the person. This is the excitement. This is the passion. This is the nervous feelings you get when you're around the person that you're in love with. This is when you guys were dating and you couldn't wait to be with the person. This is that eros love. This is that in love feeling that really all married couples are really looking to get to, that feeling of being in love with their spouse. But what's interesting about eros is that eros is circumstantial. It changes suddenly. Sometimes it's there and sometimes it's not there. It's an ever-changing form of love. It's almost like a temporary form of love, because the moment something happens that you don't like, you lose the eros. So it's really easy to fall out of love with your spouse. The interesting thing about the word eros is actually not defined in the Bible, anywhere in the Bible. So the Bible never uses the word eros when it's translating love. So which tells us that in a marriage, when God speaks of marital love, he never uses the term eros. It was very interesting, right? Because remember, eros is very temporary. It's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's situational. Let's look at a second kind of love. And this love is actually found in the Bible. It's called phileo. Phileo love is the friendship kind of love, or the love you kind of feel towards a family member or brother or sister. This is the friendship kind of love. Phileo describes love between 2 people who have common interests and experiences, or a fondness for each other. Unlike eros, which goes up and down like the waves, phileo is pretty constant, pretty steady, and it grows steadily. So for this reason, when you have 2 close friends who are separated for a long time, and when they reunite, they often say stuff like, it's like we never left. And I have friends like that who I don't talk to for long periods of time, but we pick up the phone and we just pick up where we left off at, because we have that phileo kind of love. It's that brotherly love, that friendship love, that love that grows over time, and time doesn't stop the love, even if you've not spoken to the person for a while. And this version of love is actually found in the Bible. It's found in Matthew 10:37. Jesus says, he that loveth father or mother more than me is not worthy of me. And he that loveth son or daughter more than me is not worthy of me. So Jesus used this word love, this friendship love, this brotherly love towards a father, a mother, or son or daughter. He used that word phileo love. But interesting enough here, he's not using that word love in terms of the marital relationship. Of the definitions of love, we looked at 2 of them, the eros and phileo. Eros is not even in the Bible. Phileo is in the Bible, and neither one of them describes the marital type of love that God wants us to have for our spouse. Let's look at a type of love that is defined in the Bible as a love we should have for our spouse. And that word for love is called agape. But agape is a love that's entirely one-sided. It doesn't depend on what the other person does. So agape in its purest form requires no payment or favor in response. It's the kind of love that we find in John 3:16 when Jesus says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only begotten son, that whosoever believeth in him should not perish but have everlasting life." That word love in John 3:16 is agape love. That's the love that's one-sided. When we were sinners, when we were against God, God chose to love us. And that one-sided love required nothing in return to receive that love. And that's the kind of love that God is using in terms of marriage. If you look at Ephesians 5:25, it says, "Husbands, love your wife, even as Christ also loved the church and gave himself for it." So we see that this love in verse 25, this is the agape love. This is translated as agape. If you look at that Greek word for love and that translation there, you hear the word agape. Also in Colossians 3:19, it says, "Husbands, love your wife and be not bitter against him." That word love is translated as agape love. That's that one-sided love. In Colossians 3:19, obviously, this is saying when your wife does something that you don't like, you still love them with the agape love and be not bitter against them. So we see that when God talks about love in terms of a marital relationship, he's talking about the agape love. He's talking about the one-sided love that we choose to love people. If you get married because of eros love, or even phileo love. Eros means being the excitement, the emotions, phileo being the friendship. If you get married for any of those two reasons, more than likely you're going to get a divorce and you're going to hate the marriage that you're in because you got married under the wrong definition of love. The correct definition of love to get married under is the agape love. It's the one-sided love, knowing that this other person is not perfect. They're going to do things that you don't like. There'll be times where you're not going to have the fondest feelings toward them. But in all of that, you're choosing to love this person until death do you part. That's the agape love that God uses in terms of marriage. That's why when God says, "I hate divorce," he hates it because what you're doing is you create a covenant based on a choice. And choices, he doesn't want you to break your choice or break your commitment. Now, get back into the question of how do I get back in love with my spouse? Now that we understand the definitions, we understand what we're really trying to get to. We're trying to get to that eros type of love, that feeling of excitement love. And we got to be careful here because that type of love is situational, it's temporary, and it's really dealing with the emotional side of feelings. Don't think your marriage is in trouble because you don't feel the eros kind of love on a consistent basis. Remember, because your marriage is based on agape and eros is not even in the Bible. So the ideal of I'm in love with my spouse, that terminology is not even in the Bible. But I know as husband and wives, God does desire for us to have those feelings of love, be excited to be in with the person. So right now, as we close out, let's talk about a little bit how to get back in love. Now we understand the definitions. First of all, in your marriage, you have to realize that your foundational love is agape, and that's a choice. And you can't stop loving your spouse because of their actions, good or bad. That love has to be a constant foundation in your marriage. And after you go from making that choice, that love is a choice, you move to the phileo love, which is a relationship love. If you want to experience the phileo, which is the friendship, what you need to do is on a daily basis, you have to find ways where you and your spouse can connect together in meaningful conversations, meaningful activities, meaningful shared experiences to create a relationship. And through this relationship, this is where you probably start feeling the sensation of, wow, I like to be around this person. I like to spend time with this person. And here's the deal. If your marriage is based on the commitment of agape, based on the daily working on the relationship of phileo, eros is a byproduct of agape and phileo working together. So you can't work on eros, but you can work on making sure that you love by choice and you spend daily time working on that relationship, which generates a phileo love. And if you love by choice and you create the relational love, eros follows naturally. So if you want your marriage to be more in love than out of love, make the choice, Spend daily time creating communications, meaningful experiences where you can build that relationship with your spouse. So I hope this helps you today, whether you're married or single, just realizing that love is a choice. And so for single people out there, they look good, they smell good, they're putting the best foot forward, but realize right now you're in eros, you're in infatuation. What's going to make your marriage last is the agape love. So don't get the loves out of order. When you say I do to that person, you're using the word agape, and you realize that's the love that's sustaining and everlasting. That's the love that God used to save us. And that same love God used to save us, he wants us to use that love towards our spouse. That concludes today's daily word, and I pray that it was a blessing to you. Before we wrap up, if the Holy Spirit is speaking to your spirit to partner with Church for Entrepreneurs, go to churchforentrepreneurs.com/partner. And if you want to connect with our ministry more, go to churchforentrepreneurs.com and join our online community. You guys be blessed, and I'll talk to you soon.